Latte Lath at the moment, I think he needs taken out of the squad for his own good. Not the squad entirely, but out of the starting 11 for his own good. Yesterday, that chance that he missed is just another prime example of what we've highlighted before, where you give him too much time to think, and he's probably going to make the wrong decision. And for me, I think he's been struggling since he missed the penalty against Heerenveen. And don't get me wrong, he's had chances since then. But I think it's one of those classic scenarios, and we've all seen it. Everyone's going to, everyone listening to this who has played football 5-a-side, 7-a-side, anything like that has seen this. There's that player who's absolutely mint, scores every game. There'll be that one game where he drags a shot wide, the first shot, and then another one will be blocked, and then another one will be saved, and he gets more and more into his own head. And the harder he tries, the more nothing's going to go in, and he gets more and more his own head. And I think that's the case with Latte Lath. I think he was on such a high after last season, misses the penalty against Heerenveen, and it's just kind of like an oh shit moment for him. Very brave the next week, taking the penalty against Swansea and gets the goal, and you're just thinking, hopefully that's it. That's that put to bed, really. And he's had chances since then that he really should have scored, and he hasn't done. There's been a couple, say like the header against West Brom, for example, really unlucky. But it does play into that mental thing of what do I have to do to score? Whereas I think when you've got Conway and Force on the bench who are more composed finishers, I'd have trusted either one of those to take that chance yesterday. But Latte Lath, not so much in that scenario. So I think he could just do with a spell out. Just you bring him on for half hour at the end, and hopefully get a goal, get his confidence back, and then you put him in the starting 11 more and more often. But I think the longer it goes on, the more and more we would see stuff like this, where he gets golden opportunities, but too much time to think about it, gets in his own head and misses. And I think this is just where it comes down to Carrick needs to use the squad that we've got assembled. Because as we've said, that was a very strong bench yesterday. And in my opinion, this is one of the strongest squads that we've had. Well, maybe discounting the season where we got to the playoffs, strongest squads in terms of depth that we've had for years. And it needs utilising right this season. And for me, there just are certain elements where we need to be utilising the squad more. And we're not doing that at the moment.
See, I'm going to back Latte Lath because I do feel like he's been more unlucky than he's been like crap. And the thing is, I think we have to have a conversation around him because I think the perception of him has changed because of the purple patch, the very substantial purple patch that he had towards the back end of last season. But at St. Gallen, Latte Lath scored 2 goals in his first 5 games, which is neither good or bad, really. He then endured a pretty dry spell, scoring only 1 in his next 10 games. Of his 16 goals that season for St. Gallen, 38% of them came within the final 4 games of that season. There were 2 separate braces in and amongst that. So my question is he the type of striker to endure a barren spell and then just explode and go on a purple patch again? Boro last season, he was inconsistent in front of goal the first half of the campaign, and there was a feeling that he could have scored more, that he was somewhat unreliable in front of goal when he got his chances. Then, in the latter months, 11 goals in 16 games. I don't think Latte Lath is that far away from it clicking again. And then with a goal or two, the narrative probably does change there for at least a little bit. So I think we stick with him. For how long, I don't know. And I know that people want him dropped because, as you mentioned quite rightly, Tom, you've got Force and Conway waiting in the wings there. Is Force even considered by Carrick a striker? Personally, I don't think so. I know we've got a lot of depth options at right mid, but when push came to shove last season, like Carrick didn't really, I think he maybe played him once that I can remember as a centre forward, and I don't even think it was from the start. So, like, for me, Marcus Force isn't a striker anymore. He's a right midfielder. Whether it's right or wrong, that's a different question. That's how I think Carrick sees it. So I don't think he's an option there. I think it's between Conway and Bergzorg. And out of the two, you go with Conway. So even regardless of whether Marcus Forss is a right midfielder or a striker, you've still got a good striker there in Tommy Conway. So yeah, with Latte Lath, I think we might need to consider whether he's just a streaky striker and that this is him. He'll go through a really barren run that'll get people questioning his place in the team, but then he'll just explode into life. And I don't feel like he's that far away from exploding into life personally.
I suppose the only thing is, though, like in a season where expectations have been quite high, how much do you want to stick with a striker who's on a barren run when you've got other options there? And for me, that's an area where you use the squad, and like I said, you start bringing Latte Lath off the bench, hoping he can get a goal. Because I agree that he's a streaky striker, and he will go through these kind of purple patches of form. And I think the end of last season, when he was scoring all those goals, there were prime examples of a striker who was in good form because he didn't have to think too much about anything he was doing. He just did it. And now he's thinking too much. So it's like, do you take him out and put another option in to help us through this period and pick up points? Because it's fine trying to get a striker back on form, and this is probably exactly what we would have done last season when he was our only option. But when you've got the league table to worry about, and 2 or 3 other options at striker, is it something you can persist with until he starts working? And
I will say,
well, I was just going to add as well, his work for the team during this period has been fantastic, and I don't want to come across like I'm questioning that at all. We had that question a couple of weeks ago on our last podcast. Does it look like his head's turned and stuff like that? No, it doesn't. He is working as hard as he can, but it might be one of the things where you need to take him out so he can get his goal scoring form back, and we might have to slightly change our approach up front, probably to a more slower approach. But we also there's other underlying issues as well up front as to why we're not scoring goals, and we'll probably get into this a little bit later on. But Mado pointed out on the radio yesterday in the fact that we only have Latte Lath in the box for some crosses, and that as well is not fair on him as a striker because he's being expected to do a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say there, it isn't just Emmanuel Latte Lath either that is responsible for Boro's goal scoring drought. Do you want to know who in the Boro squad has the most shots at goal this season? Does anyone want to give that a guess?
Finazaz, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Finazaz has 32 shots on goal. Latte Lath has 25. And shots on target, Finazaz has 12, sorry. So, yeah, I mean, there's other players that I think are responsible for this. It's a whole team thing. But obviously, with Latte Lath leading the line, being the number 9, and obviously, as Tom alluded to, having that very recognised purple patch at the end of last season, the expectations get cranked up even further. And it was never sustainable, that purple patch. And I'm not suggesting that anyone thought it was, but maybe this is kind of just regressing to the mean again. And this is kind of just what Latte Lath is, basically.